Hi there and welcome to this look at September. Firstly, I think it's actually worth saying a few words about August because it was a month of weather fireworks. The second week brought a spell of exceptional heat to southern counties with temperatures on a number of days exceeding 35 Celsius. Things then changed dramatically and we had two named storms for the first time in August. Those were Ellen and Francis, and they brought severe weather to large parts of the UK. Things then ended on a very chilly note, with ground frost actually being recorded in parts of the north and Scotland. So, how is September looking? Well, it has started on a quiet note in southern counties with some pleasantly warm sunshine, but in the north it's more unsettled. Now, the TWO monthly forecast headline is suggesting temperatures to be close to or slightly below the average and rainfall levels to be close to the average. Now let's take a little look at some of the thinking behind that and step through some of the computer model charts. Firstly, we've got the 10-day ECM model, and I'll run the sequence here because it's showing pressure patterns across Europe and the North Atlantic. So we start off, and the key thing to note, I'll pause it there on Monday the 7th of September, the key thing to note is that high pressure is fairly strong to the southwest of the UK, and sometimes it builds northeastwards across the country, and we've got areas of low pressure to the northwest close to Iceland. Now that is a very typical pattern in the North Atlantic. Nothing at all unusual about it, and what it tends to suggest is that the driest and warmest conditions will be in the south, with wetter and windier periods further north. So if I continue the sequence through to the end, which is Friday the 11th of September, we can see things have changed, but the broad picture remains the same. Low pressure to the northwest is having a little bit more influence at this time, with pressure across the UK falling to an extent. But as I say, it's the same general pattern as for throughout the first 10 days. Now, just to put a little bit more detail onto what that means. If we initially take a look at the temperature anomaly charts for days 0 to 5, I'll just highlight the UK here with the circle. What we can see is that temperatures are shown to be a little bit below the 1981-2000 average, taken over the 5-day period as a whole. I would add that these GEFS charts tend to be a little bit conservative with temperatures. Often the outcome is a degree or two higher. So in other words, I would expect things to be quite close to the norm during this period. If I now skip ahead to the next chart, which is for the 5 to 10-day period, and we see something quite similar there. In the south, actually, temperatures are now forecast to be a little above the average, but in central and northern areas, they remain slightly below. Moving ahead to days 10 to 15, and again, it's a very similar story. It remains slightly colder or cooler than average in central and northern areas, and slightly warmer in the south. But as I say, with the GEFS tending to under-report temperatures by a degree or two, the overall picture looks pretty close to the norm. Nothing out of the unusual there, and quite a contrast with the extremes that we saw last month, if of course this turns out to be correct. Now I'll step across to the surface pressure forecast spread, just to provide a little bit more insight into whether or not we can expect a great deal of rain or whether it will be dry. What this shows is across the bottom axis we've got time, so days ahead, going from 0 to 16. Days ahead, it starts today. And on the vertical axis, we've got mean surface level pressure, shown in millibars. And it's a forecast for London. In the short term, we see pressure is fairly stable. Then after day 5 and up to about day 8, it rises, suggesting therefore, as you would expect, that high pressure is beginning to have more influence. Thereafter, from days 8, it's a much more mixed picture, which begins to show its hand. Many of the dots here, each one represents the output from one computer model run for one time step, are dropping. Some of them show quite a sharp drop in pressure, indicating perhaps a deep area of low pressure moving across the UK at that time. But most of them are more moderate, but they do still show this dip, so we'd expect high pressure to be declining through this time period. So as I say, from about days 8 through to days 12 or 14. At the end, days 14 to 16, there's possibly a hint there that pressure is beginning to rise again. What that means in terms of rainfall can be better seen on this plot, which also shows the 16-day GEFS data. Along the bottom we've got rainfall, or precipitation as it should be more correctly termed, because we sometimes get snow in the UK, although this time of year it would be unusual. Sometimes get hail as well. In the short term, we can see there are a few rainfall spikes for the London area between 3rd of September and the 7th, but they're not huge. What this suggests is there will be some rain around the next few days, but it's not going to be heavy and particularly noticeable. But as I say, it won't be completely dry. If we then look at the second week of the month, so really from the 7th of September through to about the 14th, there are fewer rain spikes, and that ties in with a period of high pressure quite nicely, which is what I was discussing. So dry conditions look more likely at this time, and probably warmer as well. And it is very early in the season, and technically it's not correct to use the term, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some mentions of an Indian summer around about this time if we get a few warmer and dry days, especially in southern parts of Britain. Towards the end of the run, say from days 14, from September 14th through to the very end, which is September the 18th, number of rainfall spikes increases again. So perhaps things begin to turn a little bit more unsettled in southern counties during the middle third of September. If we jump up to Glasgow to see what's going on in the northwest of the UK, in some ways it's a similar picture, but it's a little bit more pronounced, the pattern's more marked. In the short term, here it's wetter. Next week, it looks like turning drier, although there is still a chance of rain at times, but the general picture is a drier one, even in the northwest. But by the middle of September, the rain spikes increase, and it looks like a more unsettled pattern begins to return. So as I say, that would tend to suggest the high pressure begins to decline, have less influence across all parts of the UK, and a stronger west or southwesterly flow begins to return from the Atlantic. So if we just look ahead to the second half of the month, obviously forecast confidence by this point becomes very low. Nonetheless, the computer models from the European Centre do cover this period, so it's worth considering it. This temperature anomaly chart is for the 14th of September to the 20th of September, and we can see the UK shrouded in light blue shading. That indicates below average temperatures are favoured through the week. If we scroll down to the precipitation anomaly chart for the same week, there isn't really much to say about it. Perhaps drier, perhaps wetter than average in the north, but there's no real signal in the south, so fairly typical for the time of year. If we jump ahead to the final week of September, that's the 21st to the 27th. By this stage, the signal for cooler conditions has really faded significantly, although there is still some blue shading in the south and in the east. But it's a very weak signal by the last week of September. In terms of precipitation, again, there isn't really any marked signal, so no expected deviation from the norm at the current time. But it really is important to stress that at this range, things can and do change quite dramatically. Therefore, to summarise, how is September looking at the moment? I would say that it's looking a much quieter month than August, with far fewer weather fireworks. I'm tempting fate by saying this, but it's looking like temperatures will be close to the average, perhaps slightly below, and rainfall levels are also looking pretty typical for the time of year. So there we have it. All in all, a very ordinary September is currently favoured. Thanks for watching now. Bye.